Say ah. 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 Ah.
Yes, welcome back to the Spacebook, talking all out there entertainment, getting together to compare what we've watched, what's made our radar, and to show our findings. Most importantly, though, we have a big old laugh, don't we? And we've got a big panel to have a big old laugh with on this edition of the show. So I've got them here. I've got the mega geek, Ian David Diaz there. We have the bad boy, the fugitive of Twitter stroke X, problem being over there. We've got Mr. Bowles Trek here with his dark soul and icon, and our mate Nicky P. Smalley there. Lots to talk about, and not least of all, the biggest, baddest birthday boy of them all. Let's open it up with the real-life Doctor Who. Happy 90th birthday to Tom Baker. Yeah, when he was cast as the fourth actor to play the Doctor in 1974, Tom was just a jobbing actor who'd had some TV, stage, and movie success, but was working on building sites and things. At the time, he took the series to new heights of popularity during a 7-season stint, casting the longest, woolliest, and curliest of shadows. Whilst he found professional life after the TARDIS frustrating, there were further memorable roles, and in time he would return to his most famous part in ongoing new audio adventures. Now, as he reaches this big birthday, Tom is the epitome of a national treasure, an intergalactic icon, distinctive, irreplaceable, and absolutely the definitive Doctor Who to this date. Thomas Stuart Baker, born in 1934 in Liverpool, England, and now a resident of Rye in East Sussex. He's a former monk, as everybody knows, but there's lots of other fascinating facts about Tom Baker too. I think that everything about Tom Baker is interesting. Where do you stand on this problem being?
Yes. I've read his book. I've listened to his audio of Who on Earth is Tom Baker? And you're always filled with anecdotes and stories. You're never quite really sure if he's embellished them beyond the nth degree or if all this stuff really, really happened. And I love that about him because he's one of those people that you very rarely meet in real life. I think you can count people like him on one hand these days. I mean, these people just are otherworldly in their universal experience. You know, not even worldly, universal. Brian Blessed was another one that was very larger than life and filled with anecdotes. And I got to spend a day with him once on a commercial, and he was one of those people that you just sit there and you've got a grin from ear to ear, and you're just listening to what they're saying. You don't need to interject or say you wouldn't even get a chance anyway. But it's one of those mentalities from a bygone age of a class of person or a type of person. Class is probably not the right word, but it's a type of person that comes along once every few millennia and you embrace them. And Tom Baker is definitely one of those. Not the time I met him necessarily.
You've met Tom Baker. We're going to compare notes on the panel. Who has had the honour of bumping into Tom Baker at whatever point in his life? But it's safe to say, isn't it, Nicky, that people like Tom Baker, they could be the last of their breed.
Maybe so, yeah. But I mean, maybe I don't completely agree. 'Cause thinking about it, if those eccentrics were out there, they'd be doing stuff like this, and they would find. I think they would find their audience. I do think it comes from a different time, a different world of entertainment, where you had these people that rose that were great raconteurs, and they reveled in their eccentricities. Lee, you mentioned Brian Blessed, Quentin Crisp, whatever. You can watch these interviews where they completely go off into almost another universe. Where reality doesn't seem to matter, and where they tell these stories of the life that almost seem impossible, or other people tell stories, anecdotes of being with them, and you can't quite piece together a whole being because they're so eclectic and of multiple temperaments.
Do we kid ourselves? Do we kid ourselves, Nikki, that because characters like Tom in particular are so distinctive that they are therefore not bound by the same restrictions that we are, and are therefore almost ageless and immortal? So when they clock up any birthday, let alone a big birthday like 90, it's kind of a bit of a shock to the system, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I totally agree with that. You do sort of, even Brian Blessed, even though you could argue that he's not in culturally as big as Tom, he's just something that's there and beyond. Almost like the Queen to an extent. There is something that's always with us and there, and you don't expect it to ever go away. I don't think that you'll see them as often anymore.
I think you will.
Well, yeah, it could be proven wrong. It's all opinion, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think. I think there's still a lot of people out there that are just their own selves, if you know what I mean, and not carbon copies. A lot of people copy people, and a lot of people are after fame now. This generation's, they're after TikTok fame or YouTube fame or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But there are people still out there that don't subscribe to that stuff and their own, and they just need to be given a chance. They're out there. They're out there.
It's good to have you back again, Ian. Every week we talk on this show, pretty much, we touch on the golden period of TV in some way, don't we? Yeah. We get a bit misty-eyed and talk about the 1970s a little. Is Tom Baker, despite the 90 years with us, is he still tied to the 1970s for you?
I guess. I don't know. I mean, look. We all know that Tom was a real bastard, shall I say, when he was at the height of his fame.
He's a complex character.
He did treat a lot of people badly, and he did. What I was told, he drank a lot as well. But I think he's more grateful now, and I think he's grateful for the life that he still has and the life that he had as the Doctor. Because again, as you get older, you see life more clearly. That's what I believe anyway. And you don't screw around because that time, the clock is ticking, and you try to take every day, the best you can, and every second, every day. Do you know what I mean? And this is what Tom's doing, because every time I know someone actually a couple of months ago that met him before Christmas, that actually met him on the street, and he was charming, according to that person.
Ian, do you think that despite the things that you've pointed to and Tom's struggles in the past with interpersonal matters, his personal life, his working life, and although he hasn't been as candid as some, and he hasn't gossiped and ever written a tell-all book where he spills the beans on lots of people that he's worked with. He's never done anything salacious. He's been quite open about the demons that he has conquered, about the person he was then and the person that he is now, being quite frank and pragmatic about it. Do you think that's something that a lot of stars, like the TikTok generation, well, more so actually older people as well, people probably since reality TV came in, these people who have these ferocious egos and become very, very famous very, very quickly, and they often have a mighty thump, don't they, and a lofty fall from grace. Do you think they could learn a lot from somebody like Tom Baker, who has been very open about, yes, I was like this, I'm not anymore, I'm in a better place now?
That's life, isn't it? You
yeah.
can be an arse when you're young because You don't know don't know any better. Well, he should have known better actually, but he was just an ass. He's still
All the
the doctor.
time,
He's
yeah.
still the doctor, right? It's like when Sean Connery
The
was alive.
Doctor.
Yeah, when Sean Connery was alive, he was, no matter what roles he played, he was always known as the first James Bond, right? Even though he wasn't the first James Bond, obviously, but he's James Bond. Same thing with Tom Baker. He'll always be known as the Doctor, no matter what Doctor comes before or after him.
No, I think you're right. And we fans often refer to him, Doctor Who fans and genre fans, Chris, we refer to him as just Tom. And I think in our circles, when we talk about Tom, we all know who one another means. There are very few characters like that. Lee mentioned Brian Blessed earlier on. I think he's sort of borderline. But the only other people I can think about along those lines, when you mentioned the word Shatner, we know.
I was just about to say that.
There are other people in popular culture, people never refer to, it's Liza, it's not Liza Minnelli. But there are very few people like that, aren't there?
Yes. And Dan, I would like to say, I am honored to be here to celebrate the 90th birthday of the fourth Doctor of that wonderful show called Doctor Who that had a great run. Ended in 1989 and has never been heard or seen from since. That's the story, and I'm sticking to it. But I think for me, it's actually kind of cool because my two childhood heroes, which would be Tom and Shatner, Captain Kirk, and the Doctor Who. I don't even call him the fourth Doctor. He is the Doctor or Doctor Who for people who call him that.
That's more than fair.
As you know, I've had kind of a how shall I put this, tumultuous relationship with this franchise over the past few years. But one thing that I've noted, I went for, I think it was almost 2 years without watching any Doctor Who at all. But recently, I went and watched The Deadly Assassin, which is
a good one.
Probably my favorite. I think Caves of Androzani is the best story, but The Deadly Assassin is my personal favorite story. And what I realized after being away from the show for even the classic series for a couple of years is it kind of reinvigorated it. And I'm like, because I don't like this imitation that's floating around, I don't have to discount what came before. And what I noticed, that presence that he had that I first noticed when I was a kid, and I think I've said this before, my earliest memory is actually of Doctor Who, the curly hair, the Daleks, and the soundtrack or the theme, which scared the living crap out of me as a kid. And so I'm guessing based on what it was Destiny of the Daleks. But I remember just this curly haired dude that became my hero. And I remember being so depressed when he was replaced by this blonde person. But no other actor in the role has come close to Tom Baker. And you've got some great actors in the role. You've got Patrick Troughton. You're up against John Pertwee. You're up against William Hartnell. But I'd say within popular culture, out of all the fictional icons I've had over my life, I don't think any of them really has the presence of Tom Baker. There's just something about, it's the facial expressions, it's that voice, which is completely iconic. Nothing comes close to it. He still seems to have the mental capacity and fortitude that he did when he was younger than all of us are now. It's happy birthday, Tom, to my childhood hero. And he gets a lot of flack for, the kind of like what Ian said, that the way he sort of comported himself on the show, which there are multiple stories. Apparently, after drink times during lunch was a nightmare, especially in his later years. But I think that's part of his eccentricity. And I think it's the same thing with, say, somebody like William Shatner. These are not normal people, but that's part of what makes them special. He's very eccentric. He played himself as the Doctor. But Tom Baker has this joy of life. And just, you don't see this, especially with younger actors, you don't see this anymore from somebody who genuinely loves and enjoys what they're doing.
Do you think he was never fame hungry and that's the difference? Is it that simple?
He loved being loved.
And he's mentioned in interviews since then that prior to getting the job of the Doctor, he was very, very unhappy. I know he'd been through a divorce. He'd had some small roles, but not the recognition that he should have had. But I don't think for him it was about the fame. I think it was he wanted to be able to get by on doing something that he loved.
A burning compulsion to do it. I completely agree. I mean, looking back, Lee, I think, after all these decades, like 4 decades, like Chris was just saying, I kid myself sometimes that I think surely I know everything there is to know about Tom Baker. He can't surprise me anymore, but I'm always hearing new things. I mean, I only found out today that he was nominated for 2 Golden Globes back in 1972. And yet a short while later, the man was working on a building site. In the 60s, he was a fixture of the National Theatre under Laurence Olivier. And both Olivier and his wife, Joan Playwright, they loved him and really tried to sort of bring him through, didn't they? But it's a story of sort of peaks and valleys, isn't it?
Well, he's always been a grafter, I think. And I think that a lot of TV actors at the time were big stage actors. They all came through RADA or, all these sort of schools. Considering he's quite airy, with his sort of flights of fancy, he's actually very, very down to earth at the same time as well. He's got both feet firmly in the ground and his 6 foot, whatever it is, stature with his head in the clouds as well. He was never afraid to shy away from being one of the lads. He's a very pub friendly man, or he was. And
publican's friendly.
Yeah.
We don't use the A word around here. Publican's friend.
Yeah. And we know that when he got the part of the Doctor, he was on the building site and he couldn't tell anyone, and it was only when it was announced, the guys who he was working with had read it in the newspaper, and then he went back to work and had a pint with them, before he left. And I thought that was the sign of someone who is a genuine person, someone who genuinely cares for the people he does meet. And come into contact with, and he has a very long-term memory. I think I get the impression this man remembers a lot of things, which is great when you're an actor. I think that helps.
And yet he has this sort of selective memory, doesn't he, Nicky? I don't know about you, but I used to collect the Doctor Who tapes all through the 1990s on VHS, and they put out the Tom Baker years, didn't they? That big double set where they played him a succession of clips from his stories, and he would have us believe. And bear in mind, this was 30 years ago now. Back 30 years ago, he couldn't remember a sodding thing.
No, it's amazingly the best 3 hours of television that you can ever watch.
It's the strangest thing.
I always had this idea in my head that they looked at things like all the other Doctor years had done, where they had John and what have you stood reading from a script while they showed clips and this and that, and I thought, well, Tom's career's so long, what can we do? And someone said, let's sit him in front of the telly and watch old Doctor Who and remember anecdotes from it. Not remembering, of course, that he wasn't his best self during that time. He remembers nothing. And I love it. It's just every clip he sits there and you see him smiling and going, oh, Liz, and this and that. And then the clip stops and you go, well, that was wonderful to see that. It must be 16 years since I've seen that. Of course, I actually remember nothing about it.
Well, I mean,
it's brilliant.
But
it's understandable, though, isn't it? It's understandable.
You listen to him on the DVD commentary. I've been recently going through some of the commentaries on some of the DVD stories. And it's remarkable, actually, how much he does remember. I don't know many people today who can go back that far and remember people's names and what they did and think. I just love that about him. He does. I think, maybe selectively, but he does remember.
I think he remembers people more than his work.
Situations.
It's like often. I think I want to say it's the Zygons, where they're showing a clip from that, and I think he says something like, I don't remember, but I remember being in that pub and getting absolutely slaughtered.
The thing about Tom Baker's Doctor Who, that the reason why he's so iconic is not because of the clothes that he wore. Also, it was because he, as the Doctor, he brought, I know Troughton did, but he brought humor to it. He was like he was like an American character. If you at that time, British characters on TV, they're all stuck up and, you know, either in upstairs and downstairs or whatever. And then used to read American comic, and Peter Parker was you know, teasing all his villains and stuff like that. Spider-Man was teasing all his villains. And you got Tom Baker as the Doctor, and he was kind of like that. He was liked so much because he would confront a Dalek and he would take the piss out of the Dalek.
So few of them, if any of them, could manage that precise balance, because you would think that would upend the draining of all the drama, upend any idea of stakes, and you would think that it would dispel the entire mystique and nobody would be able to take any of it seriously. And yet it didn't happen.
He was very acutely aware of his audience.
That's right.
And he would claim many times that he would listen to what the kids would be saying, you know, what they would come and say to him, or, you know, read all the fan mail, or listen to what the kids are saying when he goes to visit them at the schools. And he'll listen back to that feedback from the kids. He'd understand what they wanted, from what they expected from him, and he would deliver that.
And then when he went to those schools and realized how popular he really was, that's when he started enjoying it. And then it got to a point where he thought it was a chore, and then that's when he started mucking around. And that's the Tom Baker that, you know, it's, you know, the way he described himself in the books and stuff like that. And now he's gotten to the point now where he looks back and he says, I've been in an iconic thing. How lucky am I? I appreciate it. I appreciate all the fans. And this is where he is now.
The thing is, of course, that when you're working with people, you get very close to them in a very overheated way, and you're sharing the same things. And of course, the first person I fell in love with was Elizabeth, you see. But of course, Elizabeth was married. And also, I didn't tell her. I didn't mention it. I thought better not to. But I mean, Elizabeth laughed at my jokes. Elizabeth, you know, was sympathetic because I took over from John, who had been a prodigious success. I mean, he was a comet. And they said, what's Tom Baker going to do? And it was Elizabeth who assuaged my anxiety and laughed at my jokes and went along, and we loved old movies together. And so Elizabeth was my favorite girl. That was to begin with, of course. And then she left, and so it went on and on. And then, of course, I met Lala, and that was wonderful, and in a different way.
Hearing stories like that, I mean, it's very personal. Hear him talk about Liz Sladen like that, isn't it? It's something you'd never think you'd hear somebody confess that he'd pretty much fallen in love with his co-star.
What's not to fall in love with? Do you know what I mean? Look at Liz. Liz is gorgeous. You know,
well,
I mean,
you guys
in the 70s, man, she was gorgeous. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if you guys, it's on one of the Blu-rays where they do a tribute to Elizabeth Sladen, and just what, like, and you could tell that Tom Baker was absolutely gutted when she passed away. And if you make it through that biography without getting choked up yourself, there's something wrong with you. I'm like, it's out of all the extras and everything we've seen on the DVDs and Blu-rays, I don't think I've ever actually seen an extra or a biographical feature like that. I'm like, it's just you can tell how much she meant to him, and just how absolutely devastated he was when she passed away. And you think of Tom Baker, you know, that this worldly sort of salt as a rock type figure. He completely breaks down.
That's one of the very few instances where he's being completely and utterly transparent. There are no pretenses at all. There's no performance there. None of it is performative whatsoever. It's raw emotion, and that he's sharing how he genuinely feels.
Again, right? Tom Baker is an incredible actor. He's a really good actor. You saw the stuff he was in before he became the Doctor. You know, that Sinbad film, I can't remember. Was it Seven Voyages of Sinbad? No, was it Seven Voyage? I can't remember. I was scared of him because he was the bad guy.
That's when he played. He played a bad guy in that, didn't he? Yeah. One of several films that he made, playing various different characters. Sometimes they were these sort of grotesques, weren't they? They pantomime kind of villains, I suppose, Ian. But when you're 8 years of age,
yeah, definitely scary. But again, right, Tom Baker should be celebrated as the Doctor because he's 90 and it's good to, you know, I mean, it's fantastic that someone can actually reach 90, tell you the truth, especially someone born in the 30s. So, good on him, and happy birthday. And I hope he sees many more years. That's all I can say. And thank you for all the fun you gave us as the Doctor. That's what, that should be said as well.
Well, this is it, because it sounds quite mawkish, doesn't it, Lee? You think, I'm grateful to this man. I mean, why should we feel grateful? People who aren't fans of this kind of thing, they think we're nuts to be grateful for actors because they put on the costume, say the lines, pick up their money, and then they go home. But it's genuine, this feeling that we have, isn't it, of gratitude.
Well, he transported us somewhere, and with such conviction. It didn't matter how shabby the sets were or how clunky the monsters were. He believed it, and you believed it. And that was the key to his performance. And he had such levity amidst the kind of seriousness of it. And the thing with Tom was, I mean, for me, he's probably one of the earliest TV memories I have. Watching Destiny of the Daleks in '79 would have been 4. And I remember being absolutely terrified, not of Davros, but of Tom Baker. But for me, Tom was so overwhelmingly unique. When I went to my high school, we had a Doctor Who club, so I got to see lots more of the previous Doctors than I had in the 5 Doctors, which is the only sort of connection I had to any of the previous Doctors. And even then, I was denied my dose of Tom Baker. There was a little bit. But it's all too brief. You
guys didn't get to
taste of honey
at all. I remember hearing in the UK how you never saw the old episodes.
Nope.
It's until UK Gold or whatever it is. But I remember hearing those stories. I'm like, basically after they had aired, you never saw them again. And I realized, damn, we were spoiled. You want to know how much Tom Baker we got in the 80s? We got PBS. We got it every Saturday. We got a single story on TV Ontario every early in the day Saturday.
Shut up.
On YTV, we had it on weeknights. Literally any given time, we'd have 3 stories going on at the same time. We'd get sick of it. I'm like, stop playing. Stop playing stop playing Tom Baker. Then
hands up who hates Bolster,
and he scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, we all, even your mates hate you now, mate. Well, the only things that got us through, Chris, to be honest, once Tom was gone off screen, no repeats, nothing like that, were fleeting glances of him turning up elsewhere. Often it was at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, just like this, checking out.
The alleged gentlemanly bit, opening doors and
I do whatever I feel like at that particular moment. I mean, I didn't have any, one meets fascinating and amusing women, and one meets boring women and paralyzing women, just the same as one meets paralyzing and boring men. I mean, one responds. At the time, generally, But
a lot of men make the difference simply because they're dealing with a lady. They will open the door, even though they don't like the woman. They will give up their seat, even though they don't like her.
Well, they're boneheads, aren't they?
You wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I love it. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Moments like that, so few and far between, Nikki, for us growing up, the 80s and the 90s. We'd catch him here, we'd catch him there. But there were, for all that we talk about, Tom Baker is the Doctor, the definitive Doctor Who. There were other roles as well, weren't there? Have you got any favourites from other shows? Because I know that you binge watch a lot of classic TV, just like I do, don't you?
Yeah, well, I remember talking to Tom when I met him about when he was in the BBC's adaptation of the Chronicles of Narnia. He was in the silver chair as Puddlegump, this miserable, like an elf-like
a wizard, wasn't it?
Who helps out the kids and so on. But there's so much, particularly I feel sort of lucky in the sense that because I was the UK Gold generation, so many things really that I seem to recall him just turning up in a really small part. And sometimes you forget that he's in a Blackadder, of course. Superb in Blackadder. You just never forget it. And to say, it's that thing that even people who are just fans of Blackadder will quote those Tom moments out of anything else because they're just, it sticks in your mind.
As Captain Redbeard Rum in Blackadder 2, Ian, he did absolutely electrify the screen, got everybody talking because he looked nothing like the Doctor. He didn't even really look like Tom Baker. We could see so little of him, but the voice was unmistakable, wasn't it? And this is probably one of the performances of a genuine comedy classic. Would you say that this is Tom Baker's most best-known second role after the Doctor?
I don't know. Probably.
I would say that performance of him as Redbeard was a performance we nearly never got because Rowan Atkinson wanted him to tone it down completely, and Tom wasn't having any of that. And of course, he was right. This goes back to when he was directing the directors. Quite often he was correct. He wouldn't do it this way. He would do it that way, and that's it. End of story. And this is the performance that he really gave as Captain Redbeard. And it was played for laughs, and he was supposed to play it straight. And Rowan Atkinson was apparently quite jealous of the laughs he was getting because he wanted to be the funny man, and Tom was upstaging him. But it worked, and it was right. And I don't think they ever spoke to each other again after.
Well, I had wondered, maybe on the page it was quite a quiet part, but there are no quiet parts in Blackadder 2 or 3 or 4, so I do find that quite unlikely. How about this? Have you ever seen him in Randall and Hopkirk Deceased, where he played a ghost alongside
he wearing a
Vic
dress?
Reeves and Bob Mortimer? Cassocks. I think those are classed as cassocks. Nicky, you're a man of the stage.
Cassocks you and all.
Are those cassocks?
I think the Arcatics, he was supposed to be like a 15th century ghost. And that actually brings me to the point I was going to make before. I said, we were lucky, sort of my generation, because what you all had was the people of the 70s and 80s who'd loved Tom. They were getting into television and they were hiring him because of their love for him. That's why Charlie Hickson hired him for Randall Hopkirk. That's why Walliams and Lucas hired him for Little Britain, and so on and so forth. All this sort of revival he had in sort of the late 90s to early 90s was all because these fans of Doctor Who wanted to work with Tom and have him, in essence, be just himself. As much as I class myself as a Troughton fan, above all the other Doctors, he takes sort of, if you like, to me, takes sort of the Troughton image of the Doctor and then takes it to another level. And he has that great sense of balance with humour where, he will verbally spar with the villain. He will make jokes and have silly moments, but it's all at the right time. It never, undercuts the tension. It never undercuts the story, and when the tension is really high, he doesn't do it at all. Really, he sort of, because he has to be the Doctor, he has to be the hero, and that's why he speaks to so many. That's why he's so loved.
He is an incredible man, as you say. He could be well responsible for all for all I know, thousands, tens of thousands of people, Ian, joining the acting profession, getting into television, just capturing people's imaginations like that. And here, of course, we join the rest of right-thinking fandom and lovers of proper eccentrics the whole world over in wishing Tom Baker, the Doctor Who, a very happy 90th birthday. Many happy returns, Tom, and our undying adoration to the great Tom Baker. I think adoration is his preferred method. Lee, am I remembering correctly?
Oh, he loves being adored. He does. And rightly so.
And although, of course, it is 2024, of course, things can get a little bit glum and challenging in the current year, Nicky. Challenging, I'm going to use that word. So we do have just the thing here as we make our way through the rest of the show, because anytime it seems like the mood is getting a little bit low, everybody, I'm going to give you a quick blast of Tom, because that's going to cheer us all the fuck up. Maybe something a little bit like this.
Oh, come on, I can't do that. They're not half-wits you're talking to. I mean, you sounded as if you were a fucking infant teacher. Yeah, I know you're setting aspirations, and now but you want me to sound like a fucking disc jockey. I mean, you know, what is the point is about this? You're sounding like this sounds like every other thing, the notes you're giving, that sounds like every other kind of shit, as opposed to magic and dreams. It might be great on furniture makers, they're fucking mean on commas and full stops at Symphony. Ready when you are.
The magic of Tom Baker, Nicky. The magic of Tom Baker. You like that?
Do you know what? I've heard that so many times, and it still kills me every time.
Brilliant! I love it. I love it.
From the king of all of time and space to the king of pop, I thought we'd have a quick look at this. This is a very first image, Ian. You're going to like this as a filmmaker yourself. This is the very first image from Antoine Fuqua's, you've got to be careful how you say that, Michael Jackson biopic, which is due to enter production next week. Ian, are you excited about the idea of a Michael Jackson biopic? Do you like music biopics?
I like Michael Jackson's music. I'm not sure about the person. I'm really not into this stuff. They made one of Amy Winehouse recently, and they did Whitney Houston. That was absolutely awful. The Elton John one was awful. The Queen one was good because of the music. I don't have any hope for this film. Hopefully it'll be good. They've got to find someone that actually looks like him in the 3 stages or the 4 stages of how he was. You know, from a kid to
so like 4 different actors
or whatever.
Yeah,
They should.
It'll be like The Crown. Yes, so this is Michael Jackson's nephew, his real life nephew, Jafar Jackson, who is going to play him in this movie. And he shared a post on Instagram with that image and said the journey starts this Monday. So here he is. He's Jermaine Jackson's child, or one of his children. And I think he looks quite a lot like him, Ian.
No, he doesn't.
Going to be impartial then.
No, hold on. Because the picture on the my right, the picture on the right was when he got his nose done, right? So this guy that's playing Michael Jackson, what stage is he playing Michael Jackson? Because he looks very different when he was in his teens. He had a huge nose.
Yeah, Michael Jackson had a nose job around 1977, 78.
Yeah, so to get this guy to pretend that he had a nose job and that's how it. Oh, this is ridiculous.
We're not going to be watching a documentary. It is going to be a piece of entertainment. So I suppose we've got to accept certain practicalities of the situation. But this director has done a lot of good movies, Ian. King Arthur, Shooter, the Equalizer trilogy, Southpaw, and his breakout movie Training Day. Isn't this a safe pair of hands?
No, it's not. It's not. Right. So they look, right? It really isn't. Yes. It really isn't, is it? I mean, for God's sake, because he's black and because he's directed The Equalizer, doesn't mean to say this film's going to be any good. It's really hard to get a biopic spot on. The only one that got it spot on, as far as I was concerned, was Ray. Ray was amazing. I mean, what's his name? Looked like him.
Well, how about
Jamie Foxx?
Jamie Foxx looked like him.
There has been lots. I mean, look at James Mangold's Johnny Cash movie, Walk the Line. That's fantastic.
He looked nothing like him, though. That takes me out of the picture.
Doesn't. Most of them look nothing like them.
No, but you know what? Right?
Rami Malek doesn't look that much like Freddie Mercury,
no,
really.
You've got Freddie Mercury, right? But
what's the next one?
So if you've got a good director, a really good director that deals with that subject matter, right? Like the guy who directed Elvis. That's when the film becomes alive.
Austin Butler looked nothing like Elvis Presley.
That's the point I was trying to make. You had a really good director, and that was his thing. You know, so he directed it really well. Okay, and that movie worked. That movie really worked. But I don't know about this Michael Jackson thing. What are you going to say? You're going to stop at the bit where he goes to court about the P word, whatever. Where are you going to go with this? Where are you going to go with this? You're celebrating him, okay, right? Then you're not going to get the full story of who Michael Jackson was. If you go the other way, then people, then the filmmakers won't do it because it's going to portray Michael Jackson in a bad light. So what are we going to get? We're going to get something in the middle that's not true to who he was. And it's just going to be another fantasy. So I don't know. This is a difficult one to do, right?
There's no way this ends well.
I think in theory, when I think back to these music biopics, Ian, a lot of them, they adapt either autobiographies or life stories that other people have written, or articles. They're sort of snapshots of a particular point in their lives. And I think it's down to the individual filmmaker, because the Elton John one finished around 82, didn't it? So it's around the time after he was recovering from his addiction. And that was the chunk of his life that they wanted to talk about. And many people get frustrated about the Bohemian Rhapsody film, Chris, because it ends with Live Aid.
Well, I'm with Ian. I'm not, as everybody knows,
I'm in
a
two
big
minds about
movie
this.
fan, but for the most part, I do like Walk the Line, but I'm not a fan of biopics. But specifically with this one, there's no way this ends well. When you get to, if they go to Michael Jackson's later life, at which point they're going to have to cast a woman in the role. There's...
Don't put it past them.
And I've watched all the documentaries on this. I've seen them from both sides. Some paint him as being very, very bad. The other one paints him as this is all false and he's not very, very bad. I think the truth might be somewhere in the middle. I think, well, it's been, almost 15 years now since he passed away.
Wow.
Michael Jackson is unique amongst famous figures, and not necessarily in a good way. There's a duality to it. We all of us that were in the 80s, we all grew up with Thriller. I had it on tape. I had it on record.
I saw him in concert.
Yep.
Did you really?
Bad was okay. Dangerous was not bad, but there's this whole other side to his life which is just creepy. Does anybody remember the Martin Bashir documentary?
Yeah,
I
remember that.
I don't see myself watching this. There's just, I like his music, but there's just something about Michael Jackson, and I've had this discussion with people.
If you've got his nephew playing him,
it's going to be one
there's
side.
a family connection to it. They're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's a production of the family, I think, Lee. Yeah.
Well, they already did it sort of in American Dream or whatever it was called. It came out in '92, back when he was still on top of the world. I'm sure it was Portrait of an American Dream or something like that. And that one, I think they go up to Thriller. So it does lean very heavily into Michael Jackson's past. And this was 1992. So this was a year before the first of certain allegations, which we shall not be mentioned, came out. I'll be skipping this one.
It does make you wonder why now. I've got the official blurb here, and it says Michael will bring audiences a riveting and honest portrayal of the brilliant yet complicated man who became the king of pop. The film presents his triumphs and tragedies on an epic cinematic scale, from his human side and personal struggles to his undeniable creative genius, exemplified by his most iconic performances.
Well, sorry, you got to finish. Sorry.
But it says, as never before, audiences will experience an inside look into one of the most influential, trailblazing artists the world has ever known. So, Lee, they say here, they go to several times in quite a short blurb. We've got inside look, personal struggles, triumphs and tragedies, brilliant yet complicated. So it's hinting that it all won't be rosy in the garden, but is that really quite woolly thinking?
Well, the standout word there for me was honest, and I can't see how you can go near the sort of topics surrounding him and have a family member portraying him.
Yeah, that's right.
I just don't see that as being particularly honest. I think they're dressing it up. I mean, there was a really interesting program. I think it was on Netflix, and it was delving into some of these deceased pop stars, and Michael Jackson was one of them. I think Whitney Houston was another, and I can't remember who the other one was. It might have been I can't remember, but there was definitely one with him. And it was by this sort of psychologist who, to be fair, I don't think he'd never sort of met him or whatever, but he could deduce from various patterns and what people have said and whatnot. But he, when he had that accident at the Pepsi commercial where his hair went on fire, because he was too near the pyrotechnics, and it just set his hair on fire, and he got
remember that.
third-degree burns. And he had to wear a partial wig, so all of that sort of hair stuff that was, you know, it was all those wigs and things was because he was bald. He was on painkillers from that point onwards, and that's when the painkiller addiction started. But apparently, because of all the years of mental, emotional, and physical abuse by his father, Joseph Jackson, that he had sort of retreated into himself, and that he'd sort of formed a narcissistic personality disorder. So he wanted to be a star, and he would use people to get where he needed to go, but he would sort of drop them like a hot brick the minute he didn't need them anymore. And this is very sort of very typical of that kind of mentality. That changed my views of him, because I grew up
me too,
loving Michael Jackson as a kid, and Janet Jackson. Actually,
is it only going to be one person playing Michael Jackson? Because
it hasn't been confirmed yet, mate.
That's what I'm saying. Because like, if you saw the last video, he was with Chris Tucker. There was a video where he did one of the last ones he did with Chris Tucker, right? One of the songs. They did a video with Chris Tucker. And if you see him in that video, oh my God, he looked like a skeleton. His nose was so thin. His face was so white, right? And he had a hat on, and he had like a bandana on his head. So, because he was aware, he looked like a monster. So they're going to go up to that point? What are they going to do? You know?
I don't think there's another artist, maybe in history, that's had a fall like Michael Jackson, both in terms of image, in terms of personality, but in terms of creativity. You know, not
when you get that successful, you get surrounded by yes men. You know, the guy was off his face. Let's be honest, on various painkillers, and eventually that killed him. But you know, he started to get very conspiratorial. He started getting very paranoid. That they were after him, you know, and the Sony wanted to take him out for his music, and
it's a hell of a story. I mean, here we've got a panel. Nikki, where we have a filmmaker here in the Mega Geeky and David Diaz. We've got a bona fide film enthusiast who watches several movies in the average week in Chris, and a musician too. And we've got somebody whose head is all over the pop culture landscape, like Lee there. But they're all right, really, aren't they? I mean, what do you think has possessed a director like Antoine Fuqua to come at this material? It's not just that it could all get distasteful, but the entire thing could flop, could damage his career as well. What are your thoughts on it?
I think that, you know, but biopic films in general, when the big movie biopics come in peaks and troughs, it's response to the Elvis film and We Will Rock You and things. Yeah, that's what I meant.
David Bowie one, please. I want a David Bowie one, please. I am available.
Well, there was one, but they didn't say there was no David Bowie music in it.
I'll do that one.
That Bowie one went really underrated, a bit weird. But I'm sure it'll do well simply because it's Michael Jackson, and I think, and obviously there's loads of fans just flock. You know, like after he died, they did that stage show, and that ran for ages because people just saw his music. And did you see it, Dean? Yeah, and people just go to it because it's him, same as, you know, the Elvis or whatever. Right. I do think in terms of big biopics, I often feel left shortchanged. I felt that with the Elvis one, as much as I did enjoy it, it didn't go for me deep enough into Elvis's thoughts, and it's very snappy. For me, best biopics, amazingly, are always sort of TV movies, particularly American TV movies that you do.
Well, they tend to have a bit more time, and you can watch it in a little more comfort, maybe.
Yeah, and you know, the type of thing that turn up on Channel 5, all these mid channels that you get on Freeview.
But it all, in my opinion, it all depends on, like for instance, with the Elvis one, it was the director that made that film so enjoyable. Yes, he didn't look anything like Elvis, but it was the way that film was directed, the way it was put together was really good. The same thing with Ray as well. The reason why that was good was because one, it was really directed, and two, that he looked like him. There's no way you can divorce yourself from him. But don't you see what they're doing wrong here, right? They always get in the wrong, because of politics, they're always getting the wrong director to direct these things. This guy that's directing this Michael Jackson film, right? Is he directing it because, I hate to say it, because he's black? You know, when Spielberg directed Color Purple, the man was a Jew. He's Jewish and he's white. And there was no question that he was the right person to direct that film, because that film was so well directed and so moving. Get the right person, do the right thing. You're going to tell Michael Jackson's story, tell it from A to Z. Don't, muck around. Don't get the family involved, because you'll never get a true prediction of who he really was.
Yeah, I think already that's compromised it.
It's scheduled to be released 18th of April 2025, simply called Michael, and it will star Jafar Jackson as Michael Jackson as well.
Jackson.
Things went a little dark there. I think we should cheer ourselves up with a quick blast of Tom. What do you reckon? Yeah.
Where is it? Which one is it?
The new word.
What, all that?
Yeah, but not that bit. You've done that bit already. Just the intro and the outro, okay?
Come on. Yeah, all right. Which reminds me, have I got time to tell them about the time I was battling Davros on the planet...
No.
What? What do you mean, no?
Just raise your weight just a little.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Oh, come on, that's how you got the job in the first place.
Are there going to be many of these?
This is the row of
when Paul said there are a few
I hope I didn't scare you. Or do you want it more naturalistically? Oh, and what is it now?
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I look at that and I used to love Have I Got News For You. Now I can't stand a single one of them, but I still love Tom Baker.
Brilliant stuff. No, I can't watch it either. I think it's intolerable and unfunny. But happy 90th birthday, Tom Baker. Thank you for all the laughs. So that's the good news. We've got more news here. More news. So this week, this is something I've been asking for a little while. And finally, this week, we've got word that it may actually happen. So Studio Canal, the current rights holders to the TV show, the classic British TV series, The Avengers, an espionage show as it started out, ran between 1961 and 1969. And it was a real star-making quality show that eventually became an international hit and made stars of Patrick McNee, Onum Blackman, Diana Rigg, Linda Thorson, at least in its original incarnation. This show, well, that's a different show.
New
Avengers. A different show. So this series is immensely fondly remembered. It's not been exploited in the way that others have been. Studio Canal, they guard the rights to that show very, very carefully, don't they, Nikki? And the DVDs and the Blu-rays are they're premium line, aren't they? Close to the Doctor Who releases. So there's something prestige about the Avengers when you put it next to a lot of its bedfellows. You know, as much as I love Roger Moore, for example, as the Saint, loads of people have played the Saint, and it's there's lots of books and lots of TV movies and things like that. But the Avengers remains the Avengers. It's quintessentially the 60s.
Yes.
But here we are. It's been widely reported that they are looking at making a new TV series of it. They've got two people involved in a HBO show called Industry, which I have no idea what that is, whether they're suitable whatsoever. And they do have a director attached to this new show as well, this new take on the Avengers. It's a guy called Ben Taylor who's directed stuff for Netflix, including things like Sex Education and The Umbrella Academy and all those kinds of shows. So they're picking people who are very much of now, but it looks like, well, it doesn't seem that way. It looks like it's going to be a British or French-British show, because Studio Canal are a British/French operation. So, Nikki, you're a major cult TV enthusiast, aren't you? Is the Avengers show that is special to you? Do you think this is a bit of a sleeping giant?
It's one of them I grew up with as a kid. I can't remember what channel used to show it when I used to watch it. With ITV, and I didn't watch it in any particular. Again, I didn't watch it particular order, and it's one of them.
Depends on how old you were, because I watched them on Channel 4 in the
Channel
80s
4.
when Channel 4
Right,
first started.
It might have actually been
Midnight.
Channel 4, but and it's one of them that's been on my list to do a proper rewatch in my old and watch it, particularly now as well, because they've even remastered the really early series.
Ian Henry.
Ian Henry, yeah.
Post-Trek, did you ever watch it? Have you ever watched an episode of The Avengers?
It has no cultural presence here at all. Like it's a lot of British shows does the Avengers. Nobody, you mentioned the Avengers. I'm like, oh, there's a TV show with Iron Man. No, it's this British thing.
I do think if they make it now, it'll be a very different beast.
Yes.
I would, if I were doing it, and I think true of any sort of genre series of that era, be if they did the Champions or whatever. If I were to bring a show like that back, I would probably do it like the first era of Russell's Doctor Who, in the sense of not so much the character stuff, but that episodic villain of the week type thing. Yeah. But don't labour on it too much. Just make it colourful, make it eccentric.
Nicky, it's very difficult to make something eccentric, isn't it? It can kind of happen naturally, or not happen at all.
That's right, yeah. But I mean, you do have it. I mean, currently I'm watching, and I know it's not in the same league, but I'm watching the American series New Girl, and it just seems, that is very different.
No, but that's exactly what I'm pointing to, because as much as I like sitcoms, that is very self-consciously kooky. They try to be kooky with that. Yeah. And I think, and perversely, I think we talked earlier on about the Randall and Hopkirk relaunch. I think that tried a little too hard to be zany and culty, and I think that's ultimately why that didn't have any longevity. And I think if they tried to do that with the Avengers, then they'd be on a hide into nothing. I think it may even get critical acclaim, but I think the public would just find it too much of an oddball thing.
Well, the reason why the Avengers won't work today is because it was very quintessentially English. The humor was very quintessentially English, and it was odd humor, oddball humor, right? And also was set in the 60s as well. It was very colourful.
Exactly.
And also it was one of the very first shows to actually have a female that was just as tough and as clever as the main Steve. So they were both equal. The thing I loved about the Avengers is that you didn't know who they were working for. You didn't have to know who they were working for, right? And then the Americans put their big size 9s in, and then suddenly they're working for MI6 now, this character called Mother and all that. And it kind of spoilt the show. So if the Americans are going to be doing this, or whoever's going to be doing this, they were a tough act to follow to try and make this work. Because I can't see it working at all, because humor's developed so much.
I'm not seeing any. I'm not seeing any American sort of fingerprints on it yet. But they clearly have it minded towards finding a home on a HBO, on a Netflix. Yeah. The two creators they've got are working on a HBO show. The director that they seem to have at the moment, obviously it's really early days. This has done lots of Netflix stuff.
Yeah, but Dan, this is the reason why I say it can't work, because if you're going to make the Avengers is known for what I've just said. And if you take it in another direction, it's not going to be the Avengers. Yes, I'm saying if you take it in another direction, it's going to be something else.
That's why I think ultimately when Dan said to make it current and or to make it today, I just think people are kind of a bit gauche now. It's a bit tired and old hat to bring back something from the 60s or from the 70s and go, look, here's a brand new spin. I don't think people are that interested. I think what you should do is be a bit brave. And I say this with James Bond as well. Go back to the time it was written and set it in that period. So I'd set this back in the 1960s. I would take that kind of 1960s oddball kind of art house style to it that they had back then. Because if you look at The Prisoner and The Avengers and things, it was of its time, but set it in that time. Put that 1960s kind of psychedelic spin to it again. I think you would have a much more interesting take on it to actually sort of go, okay, this is it from the time it was in. If you just try and modernize, it's going to be full of modern gadgets and You know,
it's not going to be
another
the
spy
Avengers.
procedural.
It's a real odd thing. It started out as a procedural series, really. I mean, you see the shot of Ian Hendry and Patrick McNee in series 1, and McNee's wearing a cravat. They're in matching raincoats. This looks like dozens of police shows from around that time. And although the guy who developed it, Leonard White and Sidney Newman, worked on this show as well, they were very clear about the show they wanted to make, and they wanted to make it distinctive. It wasn't particularly distinctive enough, and they could have not had any idea about where the show would go. The magic really started to work when Ian Hendry left, and as I understand, the thing was nearly cancelled outright. They decided to sort of work with it and retool it, bringing on a Blackman as Kathy Gale. And for me, this is where the secret to how it could actually be retooled and remade. I think there's something in the core principle of this show that exists, that was pre-established before that kind of kookiness, the zaniness, and the kitsch of the late 60s. I think there's really something they could work with here at the core idea of a secret agent who recruits and works with normal kind of members of the public and turns them into secret agents, because that's what Kathy Gale was. She was a housewife. Once she was a sort of bored housewife. Steed kind of trains her, takes her in to the life of a spy and to espionage, and I think that's what made it a success back in 61, 62
as well. You know, I think audiences, even though,
but you see what I'm saying, Lee, you could do that now. People are people, and you could do that now. You could take a contemporary person or set of people and throw them into that world. Mark Millar certainly believed that, because that was the exact principle behind the Secret Service, his comic series, which eventually became the Kingsman movies. That is the same core principle of the Avengers. In that instance, it was a hoodie, a street kid, a gang member from a council estate in London who gets recruited by a secret agent. But the principle is, this is the core principle of the Avengers. And I think the fact that the Kingsman films worked, that would mean that a TV series of the Avengers, by the same extension, could work. It wouldn't need to be the 60s.
It's set in the 60s, and Steve wears a bowler hat, and he has an umbrella. I mean,
doesn't
that's
have to now.
iconic.
No, but that's why
he doesn't have to now.
But in the 60s.
But that's what I'm saying. Hold on. But that's what I'm saying. If it doesn't have to now, that means it's not the Avengers.
Yeah.
It's something else.
So what you're saying is the Avengers is just it's a bowler hat and a cane.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
A pair of leather trousers.
No.
Is that all it was?
That's not what I'm saying.
It's the Doctor's scarf. You know.
Yeah. I'm just saying that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the Avengers is the show of its time. It's the 60s, right? And as I said, he wore the bowler hat because it was very fashionable at the time, right? And it's very iconic. If you see these silhouettes of them, you got what's that name? Dinah Rigg in a skin tight costume, and then you got him in a bowler hat, and it's very iconic. And
it's a contrast, wasn't it?
And if you take that away, then it becomes just an ordinary spy.
Well, what it really was meant to symbolize was the establishment and the mod, wasn't it? It was actually meant to be a culture clash. That's what this show was supposed to be about. Perhaps more subtle than the average kind of buddy cop movie, than a film like 48 Hours or something like that. But that's what it was supposed to be. This sort of clash of cultures between the old guard, the sort of the pre-war image of what a British man was in the bowler hat and the cane, and this modern I wouldn't say a young woman, because she's not like the Doctor Who companion. She's not like 20. She's meant to be around 30, isn't she? The Avengers women are 30, 35. They're women, not girls. And it worked again. It worked again in the 70s, to arguably to a lesser extent, with the Gambit and Purdy characters in the New Avengers. It worked, but Ian,
it failed. It was a big flop.
Well, it didn't. Well, a flop. You know, it depends how we're quantifying a flop. Ian. It depends how we're quantifying a flop. It depends how we're quantifying a flop, because it didn't make the money that the investors wanted it to make. And yet you mentioned it within 2 minutes of me going into an Avengers item, and everybody knows, even now, most people know that Jonah Lumley starting the new Avengers. They recognise that haircut. So, it depends what we mean by a flop.
I think
this could work again. Sorry,
I think the problem with the 70s New Avengers was it was too close to the 60s original Avengers. And the times had moved on, but the kind of the way they presented the New Avengers was still with that kind of 1960s art house feel about it. You know, people looking off into a 1,000-yard stare and talking to each other. You know, that kind of.
It'd been sold, but it'd been sold on the principle, hadn't it? Kind of like when Star Trek. That we're going to do phase 2 of Star Trek. It had been sold on the success of the original show in syndication, and it had only been a few years, so they had to. Well, we have to have this, and we have to have that, and I think that kind of held it back a little bit. If they maybe wait until the mid-80s.
I think the one good thing going for a reboot of this is Studio Canal itself. I think they are one of those companies that hasn't really. I haven't seen anything particular. I don't know if you can correct me. I haven't seen anything particularly woke from them. They also did some beautiful work on producing those 4K versions of the Dalek movies. They do seem to take these classics quite seriously, I think. And I think if anyone's going to do it justice, I think they're probably the best company you can imagine to do it.
They're very protective of this IP.
Nikki, what was those robots called in the Avengers? Were they Cybernauts?
Cybernauts, yeah.
That was just ridiculous, wasn't it? I mean, but that was the Avengers, right? That was the Avengers. You know, it was so over the top and silly and really entertaining as well. And I don't think they can. It's a gone thing. If they bring the Avengers out now, it will be your typical, TV show. It won't be the Avengers as I know it anyway, put it that way. Sorry.
I think it'll be difficult for them to I do think it'll be difficult.
It will be hard,
to find that balance. I do personally think that I agree with you to an extent. To me, it should be set in the 60s. Look at the Pennyworth series, from a stylistic point of view, I sort of like that. I think you could still have a 60s show and have it popular. I do find it interesting though that like unlike things like Doctor Who, I know like such as us who were into cult TV or whatever, we remember the Avengers, but sometimes I think I know some people might say, well, some kids didn't know Doctor Who when that came back. Fair enough, but I think it was still part of our culture where the Avengers sort of isn't. You don't hear, other than us who look for it, you don't see the Avengers about and popping up and so on. So,
something I find fascinating about something about the Avengers I find fascinating though, Nikki, in that respect, is how, even though I'm actually surprised that Chris I'm surprised you never heard of it, Chris, because
I've heard of it. Like I have. It had, in terms of public consciousness over here, all anybody knows about the Avengers is that movie because it was
awful.
well, prior to the movie, it was
remember.
obscurity. It's like there are some British shows like Doctor Who and a lot of sitcoms that catch on, but there are other ones like Sapphire and Steel is one that never really caught on over here, but is a show that I discovered later and absolutely loved. But the Avengers, nobody here knew what it was. It was, I think a lot of people didn't even know it was an existing property when the movie came out in '98. I was stupid and went to go see it in the theater. It's so literally all anybody knows over here is the Avengers. It was an awful movie based on a British show that nobody over here has ever watched.
But you see, that surprises me you say that, Chris, because certainly after sort of the Avengers, after the New Avengers, then Patrick McGee had a really prolific career in America. So he did, as soon as I had him in Battlestar Galactica, you had him in we called Mysteries Magic.
He did TV movies as well, didn't he?
He lived over there and worked, and he did presented. I think it was called Mysteries, Magic, and Miracles, which was like a paranormal. It was like a paranormal version of Unsolved Mysteries type.
Nikki, it's also true as well, though, isn't it, with the Studio Canal thing, because that's a French company, that the Avengers may not have had the staying power just as several of us have said, the staying power that Doctor Who has had, I think, Lee, I think it was you that mentioned that it hasn't had that. Even in Britain, it hasn't had that. But in parts of Europe, it's a massive show. That there's been graphic novels that have been in foreign language. I don't think that was French. I think that was Italian or Spanish with the Steed character. So these characters have endured in different parts of the world. I understand it's also pretty big in Australia as well. So that this has had an extended life, but in the Northern Hemisphere and in the conventional West of America, Canada, Britain, we've kind of moved on. But the rest of mainland Europe has kind of been the caretakers of the Avengers in some respects. Studio Canal being a French company. No.
I really loved. I don't know if anyone's. It's on YouTube if you can find it. It's just one of the funniest. It's Lily Savage doing the Avengers. It's so great.
Wasn't it Paul O'Grady's favorite TV show? And he was a friend of Linda Thorson's.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
But you know what, right? When the movie came out, I always thought that they cast wrong. They should have cast Hugh Grant and
the man's obsessed.
No, I'm just saying. Because
great casting. Uma Thurman, she was the hot big thing of the
this was great casting.
Yeah, but the thing is though, Hugh Grant had that sense of humor that Patrick McNee had. He has that English thing about him. He has that.
He's got it naturally, hasn't he?
He's got it naturally.
Yes.
He would have made
Ralph Fiennes hasn't. I agree.
No, he went a great.
I just found out it's actually available on DVD. It came out 10 years ago. I've never even seen this before from Lionsgate.
It's really good. It's worth your money.
I added it to my list. Like, I might check out the original series, although Studio Canal, they seem to have something against North America. There's I don't know if anybody's noticed, but they own the rights to Hammer Horror, and I think in North America it's shared with Universal, who had the original rights. All the Hammer Horror DVDs or Blu-rays are now going out of print. From what I can tell, they're pulling the rights to physical media.
A couple of years ago, I was watching the Avengers. I think it was 2 years ago. And do you know how many TV stars was in those episodes? Even
everyone.
Ronnie Barker. Ronnie Barker was in it. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Who was that girl that was in the Good Life who played the
Penelope Keith? I knew you were going to say
Penelope
Penelope Keith.
Yeah.
Loads of them were in it.
Had a fight with Diana Reed.
Brilliant.
Absolutely hilarious.
It was an awesome show, and personally, I am very interested to see where this goes. I think that it's a shame that it's sort of taken this long. But then again, it's earliest of days. It could take another 3 or 4 or 5 years. In fact, it may not even happen at all. The last attempt to get the Avengers going was in 2017, 2018, where the film director Shane Black, he had a script, and he was going in trying to sell that. He really wanted to make the Avengers. I mean, if you look at movies like The Nice Guys with Russell Crowe? Who's in that with Russell Crowe, Ian? That's got Val Kilmer.
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling, yeah. And Kiss Kiss Bang Bang with Val Kilmer and Robert Downey Jr. That's got that friction that the Avengers had got.
Well, it's very American, but not British. But Avengers got that typical British humor, isn't it? That you can't get anywhere else.
So I'm not surprised that Shane Black is a fan of this. I'm actually quite keen to see where this project goes. In the meantime, the original Avengers show is available at present. Yeah, so it's streaming on Amazon Prime and BritBox. I think you have to pay for it in at least one of those places. It's not free, sadly. And yeah, very, very sadly. So let's cheer ourselves up with another quick blast of the one, the only Mr. Tom Baker.
Yeah, but that'll be number one in the fucking Singapore hit parade. They'll be whistling that all over Singapore by Friday. Symphony number one worldwide. Fitted furniture. And so they'll stop saying hello in the morning. They'll say to each other, symphony. Children, the top name will be not James anymore. I want to call my son Symphony. Ready when you are.
Brilliant stuff. So the last couple of weeks, we've talked a little about the franchise that dare not speak its name, about Star Wars.
Run away! Boo! Go away! Okay. Goodbye, everyone. I'm going to leave now.
So a couple of weeks ago, they announced that Daisy Ridley will be returning to the role of Rey in this film that they've christened.
Ray of Sunshine.
Bring me content.
This is even worse. They've called it New Jedi Order, a terrible title for a film of any description, let alone a Star Wars movie. Even worse, it was supposed to be directed by this lady. So this is Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy, a Canadian Pakistani journalist, filmmaker and activist. There you go, who likes to highlight gender inequality in her work. So yeah, it sounds like a blast. So that was week one.
Thanks for the content, Shinoy. It's going to be a blast.
then last week we got the announcement, the curveball announcement, that we were going to get potentially a Mandalorian and Grogu film first.
Nobody
which
cares.
of course people would have been chomping at the bit 3 or 4 years ago, but now it's feels like that's finished. The ship has sailed on the Mandalorian. This week we've heard that now this film, this New Jedi Order film, that was the hot new thing. There was publicity for it everywhere. 2 weeks ago, they were talking it up. Now it may be on indefinite hold, Ian. So have you heard this?
I've heard it, but then I've also heard that they're going through with it. There's some reports that they're going through with it, and the script's already been written. I don't know which is true.
There is grey area about whether it has been put on indefinite hold or not. Some outlets, some legacy media outlets and places that are in pocket, they're the ones that are saying, no, it's not on hold. It's not on hold. People like Kamato and IO9 and places like that. So what's your feeling about this, Lee?
It's bait. It's investor bait.
It is,
if I can say that.
Yes, okay, I get you.
Yeah, I mean, what it is, it's the old put the worm up the end of the hook and see he'll bite. And I just don't think they've learned anything. No. Investors are looking at this going, why? You're wanting us to give you money to produce this film that no one's going to want to watch, clearly. And I think that they put this out to test the water.
What I noticed, Lee, was that there was a chorus of meh from pretty much everybody, and a dull sort of roar of other activists going, "Yay, this is going to be the best thing ever!" Blah 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 blah, all the usual stuff. But it clearly wasn't the reaction they'd have hoped for, because that Mandalorian and Grogu announcement, that also seemed kit bashed together as well. So it all seems like a massive circus. It all seems like Star Wars, like they're completely at sea. None of this is nice to see. It's just should they just put Star Wars in a box?
Well, okay, so I'll preface this by saying I'm not the hugest Star Wars fan in general, not even the classic films, so sorry for some of you think. But I've always insisted on watching them because the fact that I watch everything cult in the fact that I recognize the cultural impact of Star Wars. And, you know, the Disney stuff has been on the whole, very mediocre to crap. But part of me feels like I do feel differently about the Star Wars universe than I do, say, for example, Doctor Who in the fact that if they distance themselves from perhaps the original films and the last three, and just tell a good story, doing anything else. I mean, it doesn't have to be about Jedis. I mean, Rogue One was a really good film. I absolutely enjoyed that. Just move away to something else. No one gives a shit.
She's a Palpatine. You know, no one wants the daughter of Palpatine to go off and pretend to be a Skywalker. Nobody wants that.
I issued a dare.
You're gone.
What was your dare, mate?
Oh, so if you watch my my last video, Disney, I hope you're listening, because this is what I want to see. Hey, so Disney, I want you to go all out on this Rey movie. I dare you. $1 billion budget. Come on, you can do it. Put your money where your mouth is. This is going to be the biggest thing ever.
Yep.
$1 billion budget, because I'm sure you'll make at least $2.5 billion back, so you can get your money's worth. Give this Shinoy person $1 billion to make a Star Wars movie, because what could go wrong other than the fact that the entire world wants to see Disney go bankrupt, and this will accelerate it. But that's not my motivation behind this entirety. I want to see some awesome 1998 level CGI. Come on, just do it. #1 billion. Get Dr. Evil up there.
From your lips to their ears, mate. I think, God, that would be brilliant, wouldn't it? The most spectacular sort of crash and burn ever. Ian, do you think there's going to be more twists to this? What do you think they're going to announce next week? Or what do you think they're going to cancel next week? What do you think is going to be the next one?
Probably going to say they're going to do a Luke Skywalker.
The Adventures of Rose Tico.
Oh, you're Rose Tico, even worse. Yeah, I've given up on Star Wars. Like everything else, I think Dave Cowan got it right, and I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to stay away from Star Wars.
The ideal jumping off point, you could say, oh, I need to be cheered up again. Let's have another blast of Tom Baker.
Symphony is a company with a firm foundation. And if you don't believe that, you can fuck off and get your cards. Ready when you are.
Yes, so back to Tom Baker. Hands up, who's met Tom Baker? Well, no, I haven't actually. I've got to put my hands down. So Lee's got his hands up, and so is that your hand up there, Ian?
No, I've never met.
No, you just scratching your chin.
Yeah, I just scratched. I mean, I had a chance to meet him, but unfortunately, I was working because he was doing a voiceover for my friend. So he was going to his house, and I had a chance to meet him, but unfortunately I had work on that day, so that was
Oh, bugger work! I would have been right. See you later.
It was a similar story with me. He was there. We were in the same room. I missed my moment. I didn't take my. I thought, yeah, what am I going to say? Am I going to say the thing? Yeah, I probably am. I'm going to kick myself if I don't do this. By the time I decided I was going to go and talk to Tom Baker, because he wasn't. There was no money. He wasn't signing anything. There was nothing like that was going on. Yeah. He'd gone. He'd left. The people he was talking to, they'd all gone. So, Nikki, you met Tom Baker. Where did you meet him? How long ago? And what was the experience like?
It was 10 years ago today, his 80th birthday.
Wow.
And he was doing a signing at the stamp shop on the Strand, where he's done a lot of signings over the last 20 odd years. And I'd taken my mother for her birthday to see The Lion King. And we had tickets for the evening. And before we went, I discovered they were doing this signing, and I says, look, would you mind if I went to get his autograph in the morning? 4 hours I was in this queue that was the full length of the Strand. And what amused me about it most of all is that there was a news agents there. And all I can imagine is during that day, the shopkeeper going, Sunita, we need to order more jelly babies, because I think everyone had bought him a packet of jelly babies. By the time I got to him, he looked sick as a dog. And someone's going up to him going, would you like a jelly baby? And he's going, no, thank you. I've eaten 3 bags already. But he was brilliant, despite the fact that, by the time I got to him, he'd been sat there for hours signing and doing the photos. Yeah. He was smiling, he was laughing, he was joking. He was so pleasant with everyone and really thankful that people had turned up and, bought him gifts and whatever. And it was an absolute joy. And it was only like maybe 5 minutes after that 4 hour queuing on the Strand, but it was an amazing 5 minutes and probably one of the best experiences I've had meeting any celebrity. I've met a lot of celebrities in my life.
So you've met a lot of them.
Yeah, I've not just Doctor Who. I've met a lot of people, and he's definitely up there. Has been.
So did you miss The Lion King then?
No, because it was an evening performance, but we had planned on doing some things before, which we still got to do. We still had a nice meal.
How about you, Lee? How did you come to meet Tom Baker?
My story couldn't be any more polar opposite to that if I tried. I mean, I've told this story loads of times. I'm sure many people in the chat already heard it, but yeah, it was in 1995. And I think it was either my first or second day on the job working front of house the Queen's Theatre on Shaftesbury Avenue for Prisoner Sublock H, the musical, Lily Savage.
Yes.
And it was like the height of the IRA scares, you know. So I was there. I was on my own, and we just opened up, and manager was like, "Oh, you're just on your own, so you just have to stand here. Don't let anyone in." Right? The bar area was all sealed off with the velvet rope, and you know, just wait there, and hopefully someone will be along, you know, to help out. And she buggered off to the office, and I was just standing there by the door on my own. In rolls Tom Baker with his wife, red-faced, absolutely plastered already. And this was like a matinee, I think. You know, I don't think it was a late performance, but he's like, "Where's the bar?" I'm like, it's not open." "What do you mean it's not open? I want to go to the bar. I'm here to see Lily Savage. Get me the manager." So bugger. So like, what do I do? Because I'm not supposed to leave the area, you know. But I thought, well, he's here. I'll just go and get the manager. Very wet behind the ears at this stage. It's like what, 20, and so I rushed to get the manager, and she came up with me. And the first thing he said was, "We got I'll never forget it. I came here to see Lily Savage. This streak of piss wouldn't let me go to the bar." Mortified. I was dying inside. It's like, that's my hero. I'll never forget that as long as I live. But you know what? You know, he was very, very drunk. You know, and I was very wet behind the. I should have shown a bit of initiative. But that stuck with me for quite a while. But I did learn as you get older, you know, you kind of forgive and forget. Well, I didn't forget, but I did see him again at the BFI and for the Robots of Death.
Yeah.
In 2013. And he was absolutely on fire. I mean, you can see his interview with at the BFI from that. He was absolutely brilliant. And I did the annoying thing is I didn't show the Q&A at the end, which I'm so sad about, because I got the final question in, and I was going to ask him, you know, so do you still think I'm a streak of piss? I thought there's no way he'd remember that, and I thought, you know, he's old, and I don't want to, you know, upset the apple cart. But I can't remember what I asked him now. But he was very, very nice and very funny, and that more than made up for it to me. And you know, at the end of the day, and I hate using that bloody expression, but you know, I did end up with a really nice little anecdote out of it. Yeah. And it's a unique experience. What can you say? I got to see the darker side of the man, and it was absolutely terrifying. I don't hold any grudges. You know, I love the man. You know, for me, he's still my doctor. He's still wonderful. And you just have to accept some people are very complicated. So, you know, he was a heavy drinker at the time.
Yes.
And it's not the same man we see here now. You know, at that time, he was big, you know, really big, bulked out and very gregarious, you know.
Yeah. His relationship with the fan base is not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily complicated, but it's nuanced, I suppose, depending on which generation you are, where you first saw him. This is the final thing I've got, which I thought was worth having a quick look at. So this is him with a personal message to a fan from just last year. This
yeah. Natasha has been a fan of Tom Baker's Doctor Who since she was old enough to watch TV, and is seen seldom without her 12-foot scarf as a fashion accessory. Sassy and stylish. That's how she describes her favourite Time Lord. Natasha. She's grown up to be a kind and thoughtful, independent, caring young lady, and I couldn't be more proud of her if I tried. Her passions are art and animals, and she adores animals, especially dogs. As much of her art reflects this. And I know Natasha will be thrilled to be wished a happy 21st birthday by Tom. With love from Dad, Alan McLean. Isn't that lovely, Natasha? To be loved like that. Isn't that lovely?
So here we go.
Dedications and moments like that with fans, and fans are happy to share them as well. Ian, there's something magical about that man, isn't there? And obviously, happy 90th birthday to Tom Baker. Many happy returns. And yeah, we'd love to hear your stories as well, because plenty of Doctor Who fans and sci-fi fans, and I suspect many British shoppers have probably met him in Waitrose, come to think of it. Whoever you are, however you encountered the great Tom Baker, please let us know in the comments section. We'd love to know your encounters with the fourth Doctor. What did he say to you? What did you say to him? There's bound to have been something out of the ordinary, larger than life, as befits the real Doctor Who. Yeah, were you a streak of piss as well? That's us done with another week here in Geek. We're all ears for your comments in the comments section. What we'll be talking about next time and who with, absolutely no idea, but it was worth having a special show, I think, Ian, to celebrate the real Doctor Who, Tom Baker's 90th birthday, and to pick through some of the rest of it as well. So, Nikki, where can people find you on social media, mate? Have you got a preferred port of call where they can come and chip in and argue with you about Michael Jackson, the Avengers, or Tom Baker, any of the things we've talked about on this show?
Yeah, I'm still on Twitter. I think it's at Nikki P. Smalley. I think that's probably it, really. I'm not on there a lot, but if I am on there, I'm usually moaning about something. So yeah, you can catch me on there. And in this next coming year as well, you'll probably hear me on things like Very British Futures, and I'm doing an episode of I Don't Do Sci-Fi, and possibly even more of these as well, if you'll have me down.
Absolutely. We're going to drag you back sooner rather than later. Lee, problem being, people can't find you at the moment, can they?
Not on Twitter.
No, I've been a very naughty streak of piss, apparently. I made the fatal flaw of not accepting anti-Semitism or homophobia, and for that, anyway, you can still find me on Instagram. You can DM me there if you need to, or add me there at Aldred Audiovisual, and that's the same as my YouTube channel, where I've got me CG stuff and music-y stuff and Doctor Who things, and I've got a first episode of Black Glove Studios' first Doctor adventure, The Misshapen Planet. You can go and listen to that. It's about 30 minutes long. I'm working on the second episode, so go and check that out.
Fabulous stuff. Highly recommended. Yeah. Yes. Bowls Trek, Chris, you've been a bit quiet on the videos front the last week or two. I haven't had a notification from you. Is there anything brewing? Is a storm coming? Where can people hear more and see more?
Well, basically, I'm the way I do YouTube now is if I feel like doing YouTube. My approach now is if something is stupid and I want to yell about it, I'll make a video. So it might be 2 days between videos, might be 2 months. So so at some point there'll be no videos coming up because I'm too busy again because everything gets nutty. But at some point I'll have another video and it will be fun, and it will be the same thing. I'll lose my voice at the end of recording every voiceover because apparently I can't, even when I try not to yell, I end up yelling. And so find me on Twitter. I'm still there. I've got my my horror account for happy things at horror_fan 1978 or Cultivated Media. And then there's at Bulls Trek, and that Twitter account is a complete dumpster fire. But if you want to lose faith in humanity, just go over there and say hi. And that's
you're like a magnet, aren't you, Chris? Like a magnet
I got my own fan club. They love me. Yeah,
that's what it is.
I'm not in a rush to get back, quite honestly.
Thank you both, gentlemen, for considering you're kind of both fugitives from social media in your own ways. But your company is appreciated as always. Ian David Diaz, the Mega Geek. Work is continuing on Rebecca Gold too. I know. I'm surprised you could spare the time. Bullets flying everywhere. Blood. The last pictures you shared from Rebecca Gold too. There's blood bloody everywhere.
No, that's not right. No, of course not. She has a bit of blood in her. But I'm still working on that. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm touchable, basically. Put it that way. And I'm working on Rebecca. Hopefully that'll be finished before September of this year, and then I'll be able to screen it, and then I'll be able to rest. that's what I'm hoping will happen. I'll be able to rest and people can watch it.
Rest.
Yeah, I wanna rest. So
When you've
tired.
got the return of Type 40 live
Oh,
to the
God.
Type 40 channel this coming Thursday,
I do.
Thursday the 25th of January 2024. Everybody's been waiting for this in. There's been no time to rest. Come Thursday at 8 p.m.
I'm looking forward to talking to my friends again, but not about
Good man.
that show that I should not mention. But there you go. I'm going to be like Brost. I'm going to be like that, shouting and screaming. But yeah.
Stay tuned, everybody. Don't miss that. Don't miss that. Type 40 Live back Thursday, the 25th of January. And the podcasts and videos too there on the Type 40 channel. That's us done. Another week in Geek. We'll see you out there somewhere as ever. But for now, yes, many happy returns to proper national treasure, intergalactic icon Tom Baker, 90 years old, and many happy returns. And your Tom anecdotes, put them in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night. Bye-bye.
Happy birthday, Tom.